And then I'm going to mute myself for a second. Wait, but all of you are quiet too.
Naomi
I'm
looks
just not
frozen.
talking.
Oh,
Oh, yeah.
that's what's happening. Okay. Okay, she come back in. She coming back in. Okay. Can you hear us? Hello.
Nope.
Can you
Yes.
can't see me, or can you?
No, we can see and hear you now.
Great. Hi.
Hi. And and everything feels better. It was pixelated before and now it's better.
So I switched to a different internet. I think we've been having the craziest rain and windstorm here, and it knocked the power out for a day, and
Oh,
now it's back.
Oh.
The internet's still a little weird. So,
Oh,
anyway,
Naomi, I'm going to share the document again because you might have missed it. And those notes are just for me to mention later at some point. Sorry, I'm using it as a cheat sheet right now. But what's helpful? Accountability, immersive experiences, announcements. Does anyone have an announcement?
announcement.
I don't have any announcements.
Yeah, I do not have any announcements.
No, me neither.
Okay, well, that part was
No
quick
announcement.
part of the call.
Oh, that was underwhelming.
Well, maybe it's accountability then.
yeah, let's start with a quick accountability check-in.
I can share the notes from last week too, just so people can look back on what we said we were going to do.
That would be great.
I can tell you I did nothing. I don't even need to look at the I don't need to look
Alicia
at
did
the notes.
nothing.
Was that what you said you were going to do for the week, though?
I'm sure it wasn't.
Oh,
I know
okay.
it wasn't.
Trying to
I've
help
had
you
the
out here.
worst week. So I did.
Oh,
I'm just happy
no.
that I made it through the week and now I'm here. So
Congratulations.
I'm going to say Alicia survived.
yes, that was my task.
We did start our rewrite,
Yeah.
Yay.
and as predicted, we didn't finish it. So we're on track.
Great.
That was all you had to worry about, right? I'm looking back now. Oh, the Patreon. You were doing some Patreon
early
research.
January, yeah, but I think I can't. I'm going to spend some deep time with that over the winter break. I think I can't really wrap my head around it till then.
Mhm. Courtney, we don't have the notes from 2 weeks ago, but would give us an update.
I don't remember what I said my thing was. I think it was to send Baby Moon to you guys, right? Is that what I said I was gonna do? I think that might have been it. But I did it. So that's good. So I hope that's all I said. That's all I did.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
I was supposed to do welcome video and deck, and I did the welcome video, and I did a video about how I was still in progress on the deck. So I showed what I could of the deck, but the deck I don't think it's ever going to be done. I don't know why I ever thought that would be the first task, because it's like very difficult. But we're at 83 patrons right now, I think. So
That's awesome, Liz.
very
That's
proud.
awesome.
Very proud
Yeah.
of you. Yay. Okay, so I'm going to close last week now.
Do you have something set up for the 100 patrons level?
No, I was going to do 150 share scripts, but 100 maybe an AMA again. I mean, it's not that exciting. Like, it should be more like your question made me think, wow, you should have something that's exciting for 100. So that's now, I'm going to put it on the to-do list at the bottom of this document.
Task for
Yeah. Next week.
I love making decks. That's like, I love making decks so much.
Really?
I was like, I'd
Oh,
rather make a deck. Well, I think I'm just I don't know. I love making decks.
Same. I enjoy making a deck.
Could this be the first
Yes,
shared
division.
division of labor? 'Cause
I
not
mean,
only do I hate it, but I'm horrible at it.
Me too.
oh man,
Same.
I love making decks so much. It's not healthy.
No, that's so
It's great.
healthy.
Sometimes
That's
I'm like, this is so much. I feel like just like I'm so visual that I'm like, I can make the deck and explain the concept and deal with whatever. And then writing the script, I'm like, oh, just kill me.
Oh,
So yeah, which is I'm pitching a fashion film thing for a brand, and I'm like, oh my god, this is the dream because it's literally just a deck. It's like the best version of a script, not a script. But which I kind of did for my feature too. I was like, here's a deck. Actually, both of the projects I did this year, I was like, okay, we're gonna work off a deck. Now I understand why I did that.
that's lucky
yeah.
because everyone wants a deck. Everyone like collaborations are born from good decks. Like you have that. You too. Yeah, jealous.
Can I ask 2 follow-up questions that came up during check-ins for me? Courtney,
Yes.
how's the editing for the first film that you shot Gonzo style going?
The Barcelona one.
Mhm.
I had someone sync it for me because the way we had to shoot, because we had no crew, is a literal nightmare. So I hired someone to assist and edit, or literally just to sync all the footage, and he got through most of it, but then had to leave out of town for a shoot. So I have to finish syncing it. But I also have been I was traveling, and then I, of course, was like, finally gonna go back to New York, and then got a job in LA for like the Tuesday after I got back. So I literally got back yesterday instead. So I think January I'll work on the edit and figure out what it is. But I also have, although maybe this is a different part of the question, but I went to a film festival in November, and just in talking to some people, I don't know if it's like a good idea to do a second feature that way, because it feels like there are a lot of opportunities and things specifically for second features, or like things change after you've done 2 for certain things, and like eligibility, etc. So I'm like, maybe I should cut it down and have it be a proof of concept instead. So I don't know, I'm trying to like weigh what makes sense in general. But basically I saw a film that was funded by the Biennale, and they only do first and second feature, and like a lot of, like, I know the Sundance Lab, once you've done 2, you're disqualified from everything. And I feel like a lot of organizations, even if they don't say it outright, kind of are like, well, you're a working professional at this point if you've done 2, so you don't really need the help. So like, maybe I should save that like title. I don't know. So I've been thinking about that the last couple weeks, being like, I don't know what's makes sense. Like, do you just know that you can make work, or do you need to like, yeah.
There's such a crazy thing around like emerging filmmakers. And
Well,
then
also youth. Like it's also like they don't
Also youth.
emerging is all whatever. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I think I was asking about the earlier film, Courtney, not the one you just
the
did.
one in Paris. Yeah, that one. So we are picture locked. The sound mix, all the dialogue, everything that's not music or score related is mixed. And we're waiting for the score, which should come in this week or next week. And then I have to, which is literally torture for me, I have to find music to license as some of the diegetic music. So I really wish I had thought about that and done that sooner, but I did not. So now my worst nightmare has come true, and I must sit and find music of people I know or friends of friends, because we have no money. And yeah, it's my least favorite activity, but that's sort of, I need that so I can finish the mix. And then color's happening the 19th. So
And how big a nightmare was it to edit that movie? Because I feel like the thing people always say is if you don't have a big crew and you shoot like that, you're going to be screwed in post. Were you screwed in post is my question.
No, we also shot while we were, or sorry, we edited while we were shooting, which was, everyone should do that. I like cannot speak
Mhm.
more highly of that. Because every time I'm AD'd a feature, I've been like, why aren't we cutting this? And so I was like, you know what, I'm gonna test it, and it changes everything. We saved one day just for reshoots, and we used that day. We reshot like 2 major scenes. We also did some ADR on set and stuff. Like my lead actor lives in London, like there's no way I could have gotten that later. So that helped a lot. So when we wrapped, like the day after we wrapped, we had a 2-hour rough cut of the film so we could tell like what worked. And yeah, so the edit, I mean, we were very intentional about how we shot it too, having no crew. So yeah, it worked. Like we didn't have to lose anything because of how it was shot. Like the only things we got rid of were because for story we didn't need them, and we only really cut a scene, and then we would cut parts that, you know, like dialogue or things that were just excessive or we didn't need. And now it's an hour and what is it? I don't know, an hour and 10 minutes, I think, is the final runtime without credits. Yeah, so by some miracle, it didn't screw us in post, having had a very small crew, but it also was like a crew of filmmakers in a lot of ways, that everyone could kind of help. And yeah, we're just super intentional about how we shot everything. And like coverage, I think just being on set all the time, it helped too, to know like, okay, this works or this doesn't work, or I've seen people try this and fail, or like we should have a backup plan in case this like this one or whatever, like maybe it won't work. So yeah, which yeah, I guess it's a miracle. We literally didn't have to cut any scenes because of technical things. So yeah. Although we did reshoot some B-roll because the B-roll drove me crazy. But our AC lives in Paris in the neighborhood where we shot. And I was like, Sydney, please, please, for the love of God, please get us more B-roll. So I guess we were missing that, but that was the only reshoot we did. Yeah.
My other question is for Liz. Sorry, back at the beginning of this meeting. Liz, I feel like I don't feel like I have been on the verge of launching a Patreon for like 3.5 years. And there is some deep terror that I have. I think that's a combination of like, A, that I'll put it out there and no one will sign up, and B, that I'll like lock myself into like somehow the wrong version of it, and then I'll be stuck there. Do you have any advice for getting over that terror from the other side?
Well, I'm 100% positive you will launch it, and within like 5 minutes, you're going to have a ton of backers. I'm not worried about that. So if that makes you feel better, like objectively, that should not be a fear of yours. Like extract that from your brain. But in terms of locking into, I find that the people who are a part of the Patreon that I'm doing are very forgiving and very flexible. And I keep saying things like, I don't know what this is growing as I go. And no one has been angry with me about that. And I think a saving grace of that is actually the pay what you want aspect of the campaign. Like Alicia, like that has been, I'm so glad you said that to me one day when I was about to launch, because it makes me feel like no one was guilted into anything, and they're only giving what they feel comfortable with. And a lot of people do $1. And then I feel like the stakes are really low for me in terms of the output. So I don't know if that helps, Naomi, but I'm a little bit more, I think I'm more impulsive than you are in this specific, I don't know like space. And so I kind of just trapped myself by pressing launch and then just walking away and dealing with what I've done. And I feel great. So if, for what it's worth, it doesn't feel like an accident at all. It feels fantastic. I love running the Patreon. Come to me. Come to the dark side, Patreon.
That's helpful. Hang on, I have to grab my doggy's broken.
Okay.
Liz, I appreciate how eager you are to pull the trigger on things. I am the opposite of that. So I really like that you're like, oh, that sounds great. Let me do it. And then you immediately do it.
I love doing
And then you can
things.
just like figure it out as you go along. I need a little more of that in my life.
I think I mean, it's good to be thorough. It is
Yeah.
good to be strategic.
Well, and I think like I'm usually impulsive, but for some reason in this specific arena,
Yeah.
I feel nervous because it's an ongoing thing. It feels like not something I can sort of dive into and then claw back. The other question I had for you are all of the money is going to the film, right? You're not
Yeah.
taking any of it for yourself.
Yeah.
Does that feel bad that it's like yet another thing you're doing for free?
In terms of
Like doing work for free?
maintenance of the no, because I love self-promotion. I'm an egotistical asshole and I like get high doing a Patreon. So it's rewarding. One of my producers is like, you should stop working on the Patreon. And I'm like, don't take it away from me. Like, I like it. So I run on it. But I also think that it causes me to avoid some tasks that I should be spending my time on, right? We have limited time. Her thought was that I should get interns, and we both don't. She suggested it, and then we both thought it was a bad idea. But she thought that it could be, an uncompensated, unpaid for distraction in the development of the film. But I enjoy it, so I don't feel that way. But if you feel that way, it will kind of create a level of resentment, I think, because it is a time suck.
Yeah, I'm just in the amount of things I do for free.
Yeah.
I'm constantly trying to cut away at.
Yeah.
So I've been toying with the idea of like percentages, like 75% goes to the film fund, to funding the film, and 25 to me or something.
I think that's great. And I think you say that in, however you want to say it, even, if you feel comfortable saying that. And I think people will more than understand, That's what Patreon is about, is compensating artists.
Right. I know that was the moment where I was like, wait a minute, how am I doing this but ending up back in the same position?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just have so little money for my movie that I'm at the stage of cheapness that I'm hoarding every dollar for the movie right now. That's why it's all going to the movie, because I'm just afraid I don't know how to get the rest of the funds. And I'm worried that I'm gonna have to fund the whole thing through Patreon, to be like super frank. But that's just me, my negative brain being anxious about fundraising.
Is there a space in which we can reclassify that worry as an opportunity?
I would love
the idea of what can we fund an entire film through Patreon. I'm very interested in finding the answer to that question. That's certainly what I hope to do, or some, at least a large percentage of it. I do remember, I completely forgot that I had a meeting this week with a business coach, and something that came up was his timeline for what I'm doing and my timeline were vastly different. He was like, I explained all the things, like, yes, the newsletter and the Patreon, and he's like, that sounds excellent. And in a year, you'll really be able to pull on the readership of the newsletter. And I was like, a year? Wow. a year. I was like, that is an incredibly long, it felt like an incredibly long amount of time, but I also feel like his timeline is actually more realistic, considering the amount of money that I would like to be able to raise. Mm-hmm. So I was like, what is a reasonable compromise between a year and I don't know, a quarter, which is where I was thinking, between at least, doing the newsletter and then launching the Patreon, because I don't want them to happen simultaneously. But perhaps in my mind, I was going to stagger them too soon, one after the other. So that's something that I'm thinking about. But to the idea of funding an entire film, or at least the majority of it, through Patreon, I think, why not? There are podcasts making hundreds of thousands of dollars a month in Patreon. Why not a filmmaker? Why haven't we tapped this resource? And what are we doing to tap it? If multiple podcasts can do it, there is no reason why a filmmaker can't do it.
Yeah.
I love that. I mean, I'm on a very slow burn of trying different forms of self-promotion right now. So I have only like 60 followers on TikTok, but like a few weeks ago I had 20. So like I'm trying to build up TikTok audience, right? I think I'm going to go to Reddit next. Oh God. But I think my goal is to do a hype reel, which I don't have. Like I don't have a hype reel for myself. And I want to do a hype reel that folds in the goals for the Patreon and the goals for our collective, and just do this all-encompassing video that's not me in my bedroom being like, this is what, which is what I have right now, is this is what I'm doing for the Patreon. And I think if I could do that, then I could put it on YouTube and like put it on every platform, right?
Yeah.
And just try to relay people. I would love to fund it through Patreon. And I think that's a really great, thank you for reminding me that that's actually would be really fun, and not seeing it as like, it's seeing it through my negative, dark eyes. Yeah.
Well, and that comes back to my idea of trying to pitch the Patreon as, I want to make a film every 2 to 3 years. And the added sums of money from this will fund them, is the goal.
Yeah.
But is there a piece of that where 25% goes to me as the person working the longest on these movies, coming back to our question of how can there be a sustainable living piece for the person doing the most work, as opposed to that person getting paid the least, which is the current model.
Yes.
Isn't it a fun model? Being a filmmaker is like so fun.
Why is this acceptable?
Yeah, it's kind of wild. It's like because the Paris movie, A Time Apart, which it's just like we raised money for it, but then you like run out of money at a certain point, and it's like, well, it's always the director.
Yes.
Like, so I'm
Right.
like, ugh, okay, now I have to like barter with like friends of friends who make music. Like it's like so much time, and then it's like me arguing about my money with like people who I'd rather pay more, and it's just sucks. And then it's like all the things and it just like never ends. And you're like, okay, well, there's no way to make the thing with enough money when you set out to do it, or not no way, but it's like I couldn't have made the film if I had to raise all the money up front for it. Like we had enough to make it and get to this point, but like there's just all these other ancillary things. And then like in theory, as the director, you get the most out of the film because it's like your film, but like everyone kind of benefits from it. It's like my DP's first feature, it's my production designer's first feature, it's my actors, they're leading in a feature for their style. Like everyone kind of like wins and like gets something out of it and can use it for their own purposes. So it is kind of a wild system where it's like, yeah, the director can pay for it. You're like, okay, cool, that's awesome.
Can we move beyond spiritual wins though, and get wins that pay rent and mortgages? Like,
well, those are the
it's-
wins that I think people are getting. That's what I'm saying. Like, I already know that people who've worked on my film have like leveraged my film to do that same position on other film. Like it's helped them in their careers, which was the goal. Like I wanted everyone who worked on the film to be able to use it to their advantage, but it's just like it takes so much longer as the director to be able to cash in on that. And yet it costs the most like over the longest period of time, or I'm like, oh my God, I have to spend a week like listening to this music and then trying to barter with these people. And then like, even, I don't know, just they're like, oh, this is like the last thing I want to be doing right now.
But what I mean specifically is that in no other industry do you have to do it for free first so that you can say, hey, look, I did this work for
Yeah,
free first, and now can you pay me for my second time on the job? That's literally not a thing anywhere else. So why do we settle for it being a thing for us, where it's like you have to prove yourself? You have to prove yourself to do incredibly time consuming and financially consuming work, and you probably end up indebted financially, but also to other people, because now, well, I worked on your project for free, so can you work on my project for free? And we're all just sharing this free labor amongst each other. So Naomi, specifically with your Patreon, I think it would be great to be completely transparent about like, yes, 25% of the Patreon is going to me. And the reason why is this: filmmaking is not a hobby. It is a job. You don't do your job for free, and I don't want to do mine for free. And we have to set that boundary for ourselves, and make our audiences understand that you might want your media for free, but that's not actually how it works. And especially as an independent artist, the whole thing with Story Made, right, is to be sustainable. So as much as we can push that up front, then it will start to trickle into everything else.
Yeah. Love that.
Yeah.
I think there's a piece here. There's this piece from the Beloved Economies book that I worked on about how sharing decision-making power unlocks also sharing responsibility for those decisions, and also unlocks everybody's investment in the thing. So I feel like, but the condition for that is fully transparent information. So I feel like there has to be a shift from what Courtney's talking about of the director, or in my case, not the director, but I think like the person who's sort of the gas behind the film, whatever that role is, as the person who always has to solve the problem and has the information and has decision-making power to a broader group of people have actual decision-making authority, but with that, comes the shared responsibility. So it's like, we have this amount of money. I'm not negotiating a contract with each of you. We're going to sit down and share decision-making power over how this money gets spent, but you have to sit and look at the entire picture with me.
I'm not sure I understand what you're saying.
So instead of me as producer, writer, whatever, negotiating, talking to the DP and saying, okay, let's negotiate your contract, but you don't know what everybody else is getting paid. You don't necessarily know the whole universe of the budget. So the DP is saying, well, I need da 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 da. So then it's like a one-on-one negotiation. But if instead it's like there's the DP, me, director, producers, head of each department, and we sit down and everybody gets a vote as to how this money gets spent. But everybody has to take the entire universe of the film into account. So if somebody's sitting there saying, well, I need 25% of the budget, well, that's like, how's the film going to work then? But that you have to actually share power in that way in order to get the shared responsibility of the decision making.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like the staffing is vital, right? Because you have to find the people who are willing to be. I think that what you're talking about is, I could be wrong, but I think it's based off of generosity. Like, I think you could get in that room with the wrong people and they're going to still ask for their 25%.
I don't think it's generosity. I think it's people who want the film to be great and are going to are not going to come with their ego first, but are going to look at here who are going to balance their own needs in the universe of what the film needs also.
But I have these experiences, as I'm sure you have too, of producers being like, don't worry about it, you don't have to pay me. It's like constantly not advocating for themselves. And so it's like you have to have the right balance of personality where it's like, yes, they have the universe of the world of the film, but also they're not sacrificing too much.
Right. And I think hopefully you have a culture where if somebody's like, oh, I don't need to get paid, somebody else is like, yes, you like,
Yes, you do.
yes, you do
Yes.
get paid.
Yeah.
And because I think particularly if you have a lot of women in the mix, you're likely to get a lot of people who are like, don't worry about me. It's fine."
Constantly.
That's what we've been acculturated to say. So you need somebody to be like, nope, that's not what's happening on this film. But in order for you to get paid, here's like, let's problem solve together.
Mm.
I just want to bring about 2 case studies that I remember in salary transparency that maybe everyone already remembers, but it could be worth looking at. Patreon themselves. I went to school with Jack Conte, whatever, and we're not friends, but he was my date for swing dance. So I'll pull that out one day. Him and his band Pomplamoose went on a tour, and he broadcast to everyone the salary and cost of the tour. And he got in a lot of trouble for that. Like there's a lot of blowback. And I think Amanda Palmer did something very similar. So I think there's something where, I mean, I don't think there are a lot of examples where people are embraced in this world, and that shouldn't influence us. I think it's a shame that people aren't supportive of salary transparency, but just a recognition that like people are idiots and they're going to respond really poorly to this, like that they're going to troll salary transparency, I think, in some circles.
Well, although the difference, I'm not saying necessarily that salary, the budget then has to go on the internet.
Oh, you're not going to share it. You're just going to do it internally.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know. I just mean between the people who have the decision-making power.
Yeah, because I
They
do
need to
feel like a
understand
lot
that.
of crew as well, especially a lot of like I am working on a project that everyone's sort of playing like, well, let me know who's cast, like, or whatever, and like people will take like lower rates if they can have certain cast in the reel kind of thing. Just so annoying. But it's that sort of like people don't want you to know, or don't want their future employers to know what they were willing to work for before
That's so
necessarily.
interesting. Like that they would take, I would think that they'd ask for more money if they were bigger names, because they'd be like, where are you hiding the money? Like you could get
Well,
them.
you know where the money's going if they know what who the names are. That's the thing. But yeah, they're like, okay, well, also they think the project has more potential to like do more, go farther, etc. So they'll probably ask for points, or they'll give points to their agent or whatever, and not take the whatever stupid math. But it is interesting, where I was like, oh, okay, now the crew wants to know who's cast. Like that's so it's like it's in the next level of like who's in this movie. So yeah, but it's sort of like their rates are a little bit of a sliding scale depending on that or like other factors.
Right, but it can impact future hires.
Yeah,
exactly.
Especially like agents, like if you have an agent, they do not want anyone to ever know how much you got paid on anything, because they always want more money, and they're always like, they're doing this at like this is a friend rate, this is a deal, this is a discount, and you're like, all right, it can't be true for everyone all the time. Like, I hire a lot of people, right? Like you all say the same thing every job, so I know you're lying, but like, they really like, they're trying to get the most for their clients. So I think that would be tricky, but within an internal setting, I think you could do it. But, yeah.
I also think this is not related to what you were just saying. I agree with that. I think publishing it publicly is different than the people in charge knowing. And separately, like anything with this idea, you're going to have to find the right people, right? Because
yeah,
and like, when Liz and I were trying to find the right filmmakers to do this with, like 95% of the people were wrong because because they were too steeped in the way things are, or they just like, they didn't care, they didn't want to change the system. So I think similarly, finding those people, most people will behave the way you're talking, Liz, and those are not the right people.
Finding the right people is so hard. It's so crazy. Finding like I've got to find my like producer soulmate is what I always where I'm like, I made so many projects and I don't like have that person and then have to do like half of that work myself all the time. So I'm like, where is this person? Like, is there like a dating app for like producer filmmaker collabs? Like, what the hell? Where are all these people hiding? And then I'll like meet someone who's like, yes, my producer is like, so I'm like, so jealous. How do you swing that? Where are they? Need to have an affair with your producer. Give me your producer now. It is crazy to like find the right people, especially in the indie space. It's nuts. I mean, it's like a very serious relationship. It's like hard to find the right people. I think for certain crew, like it's easier because it's less of a commitment, but to be like, yeah, for 2 years, we're gonna like deal with this thing together is like a lot. So yeah, it's tricky.
I think on the producer thing, specifically, there are vanishingly few people who genuinely want to be a producer.
Yeah.
So there's like, and if they do and they're good at it, they very quickly rise through the ranks. So that's,
Yeah.
I think that's part of why that specifically is so hard.
If I could make a comment about salary transparency, I completely understand why people would not want their rates public, like really public, and the benefit of having that conversation be internal. However, at the same time, I feel like the purpose of withholding that information for the public from the public, but when I say the public, what I really mean is other creators. Like it's used as such a tool to not pay people what they're worth, and by buying into that, we're kind of feeding into the problems that already exist and the ways in which money is bartered between who is considered deserving and who is not. And I wonder if there is, well, I mean, I know there's a different path, but it's like, how can we feel comfortable or move through that discomfort and explain moving through that discomfort to others so that we can get beyond the secrecy around payment? I mean, for the job that actually pays my bills, anybody who wants to know it with enough information can find out what I make in a year. It's, that's publicly available. So, and it doesn't, like, it's not a problem, but what it does do is it keeps everything honest. I know how much my coworker is making, and I know, you know what I mean? I know what the ladder is. And I wonder if there is a way, this is something I've been thinking about, is there a way to create a ladder, for creatives within your own little, media kingdom? That's not the word I was looking for, but within your own media empire, right? Is there a way to create a ladder for creatives that are, working with you? Like, well, on your first project with me, this is the pay rate. It's non-negotiable. You're amazing, but this is what we are trying to do, and this is what we can literally afford to pay right now. So it's a yes or a no. And then as the company progresses, as you can pay people more, you can like add to the pay rate. I mean, there's different ways, to figure all of that out, but I don't know. I wonder if there's just a different way to be transparent about it.
The unions technically have that, there's like the minimums for union members, and like SAG, it's on a scale based on the budget. So there are certain numbers you can kind of use as a reference.
This is bringing up what Ted Hope said to us, Liz, about like 2-page contracts.
Yeah.
Like universal deal terms. And I do wonder if that's a way around the problem of publishing it publicly, because if it's just known that in a StoryMade project or whatever, X factors mean you get paid Y, that's it. Then then the agent is like, well, it was a story made project, that doesn't count as.
I think there's something to be worked out there. Like, I understand, of course, the union and minimums, but I also know that's always been in existence and they've still taken advantage of people, particularly when you bring in things like race and gender. So it's how can we level the playing field so that even when you have a supposed system that's in place to make everything equal, yet everything is still unequal. So how can we work around that? I mean, not that's something we're going to figure out in the next 20 minutes, but.
It would be crazy if we did. We're like, you know what? Actually, this works.
I find myself being most protective over my producers, more so than anyone, actually. And like, maybe because they're the ones I'm having my regular calls with on a weekly basis, they're getting the majority of my focus. And I might have said this before, so I'm sorry if I have, but what I'm trying to do is put them either in first position or shared first position in the waterfall, because I don't think that I can account for a day rate for them. Like, if we did a day rate, then we should be paying them right now, because I'm doing hourly meetings with them weekly. So, and I agree that the conversation we had 10 minutes ago, as engines, we should be compensated as well. But I think the model I'm leaning towards is me as an engine and my producers are all going to be compensated in what I think is a radical first position instead of upfront payment. So it's like both old world and new world, old school and new school in terms of the thinking of compensation. So I guess I'm just trying to say, like, I don't know how to compensate us now. So I'm trying to give them preferential treatment in the revenue stream.
But what if the film doesn't make money?
Well, I've decided we're going to make tons of money. So that is like, I am like 100% committed to that, which is why I feel really good about being at the top of the revenue stream. I know, like, normally I'm not a very confident, or I don't put forth that confidence, but I have this blind faith in it right now. I really do. Like, it's unwavering. So time will only tell if that's foolish, Well,
and I guess if you do fund your film through Patreon, that money's non-recoupable, right? So the top of the waterfall suddenly becomes the first dollar in versus
going through. Yeah, that's true. I mean, like, the model of fundraising kind of dictates it anyway, but I don't know.
You're gonna make a ton of money. You are, because I don't like horror, and I'm so excited for your immersive exhibition. Like, yeah. I wish it were happening tomorrow. I would go.
Me too.
And if I feel that way as someone who, like, even horrors that I watch and I can recognize that they are like, I'm like, yes, this was a well-made movie. That's all I can say about it. But I would be excited to have the experience that you were thinking about doing. And if that can be replicated multiple times across the country, I think you're going to make a ton of money.
Thank you. That's such a nice thing to hear too. Well, I mean, I know we only have 15 minutes, but just really briefly, I've been talking to a few people, and I didn't know this, maybe all you know this, but there are people that specialize in immersive experience, like immersive artists. And also, like, my friend Emily knows someone who works for American Cinematheque, who works with them to create immersive cinema experiences. So, like,
that's what I did all last year, right?
No.
Yeah. I worked for this company called Little Cinema. I was an in-house producer, and we basically produced all of the, like, for your consideration, like, boutique content and virtual events and We did a lot of like basically replaced everything that was a red carpet premiere pre-COVID became like a virtual cinema event for us. So like we did Without Remorse, and we designed, like we built this 360 set that was an escape room and designed like a body rig for the actor, and it was a virtual like escape room that people actually played at the premiere online. We like won Clio's for that, and for the one we did for Blumhouse, which was horror. So it was a not really escape room, but like you had to solve, I guess kind of an escape room, but it was like a virtual interactive where you go to the different rooms online, like, and then the rooms actually were filmed, you know, so you could like go to the one room and it was like the hairdresser, and like they had all this gossip, and then some of the gossip were clues about like who did the, you know, committed the murder or whatever, like what happened in the house. And yeah, and then like it would send you back to the main event when you needed to see what was happening there. And but like all the texting between like the characters and the audience, like it was like this immersive force set.
That's very cool.
Yeah, so
That's
happy
amazing that we
about
had
it.
this conversation last time of like, this is the solution, and you weren't on that call. And then this week you're like,
Yeah.
Yeah, for like a year, that's what I did. Just we created like, we were like, how can you replace a red carpet event and make it feel exclusive and
Yeah.
cool, so it's not just an online DJ set that no one wants to listen to, but like how do you make it feel like it's of the world and like get involved and make it interactive because COVID. So yeah, we did some cool stuff.
This is perfect.
Yeah, well, we'll definitely have to pick your brain. And just the Cliff's notes of what we talked about is the idea that at least I landed on is like in a house, the movie is divided up into segments, and each segment is playing in a room. And then the lobby could be a place where people convene to either share what they just watched or discuss it. And then there could possibly be some sort of, like you were talking about, like clues being dropped, actors coming in, playing roles. I like the idea of the screen itself being hard to find. And so people have to look around the room to find. So it's like right now, the ideal world is like an immersive in-person house screening experience where they're not watching the whole movie all at once, but they're watching in segments and putting it together however they want to.
although I think that the segmented idea was yours. I think because I don't want my movie too much.
No, this is like
I
just
think
specific,
I think the bigger idea was that whatever it is, it's like an exclusive experience for a few people,
high touch,
immersive in maybe non-traditional cinema experiences.
Because we also talked about campfire screens. We also talked about, like there's millions of different things. I just keep on focusing on this house that I haven't seen, but it's like in my head. And just deciding that a wealthy patron supporter of the arts in Wichita, Kansas is gonna host it. That's what I've decided. Turn on my vision board.
Oh, you know what? I wonder if you could get made some wallpaper. You know which wallpaper I'm referring to, related to your script.
Yeah.
And put it in the house.
Oh, that's cool.
That's good.
I love that. Yeah.
There are two monetary data points I want to bring up related to this idea. One is that, did you see the New York Times article that said that Tar, which is like, like the big movie that everyone thinks is going to win all the Oscars, earned 5.6 million in box office. That is all.
Yeah.
That sounds right.
That was an expensive
Crazy pants. Like that. Okay. So that's obviously not the answer. This is obviously the answer. And I think the thing to keep thinking about is scalability. Because like with the Vampire Tour, we made more money in the first screening with ticket sales alone than I did for my entire first feature through a distribution company. So per event, we made a bunch of money, and we couldn't make enough money on that tour to make back the movie because there were only so many seats. We could only live in an RV for 3 months. So, and the cost of putting on the events, we made money on them, but like it wasn't, the equation didn't totally work, but there's something there.
Yeah. I mean, I'm thinking in which I don't think necessarily is going to solve it, but an overlap of conventions, conferences, and these events, because horror has kind of that convention world and the conference world. And I know we don't want to lean on gatekeepers, but I mean, the reason I keep thinking of Wichita is like, I think Melanie at Tallgrass would be like the ideal partner, right? So I'm thinking a little bit about that, but I know what you're saying. Like, I think it's like that plus merch, plus it has to be compounded, because I know you did like so much and still didn't hit that recoupment.
I don't know, but if like maybe there's a world too of creating, like having other people also host events that
yes, yeah, it's like the tug model before.
But
I think it also, because something we were talking about is like that you go somewhere for a weekend and do it. I think it has to be a longer duration, because after 3 months we were just starting to like really gather steam, and then it was over. And again, you can't live in an RV for longer than that unless your life is different than most people's. But
no. In fact, my life is the opposite of that. I don't want to.
and 3 months in an RV is probably enough. So there has to be some way that but it goes on. Like, I think 1.5 years is probably.
Maybe you could get, well, for one, wouldn't it be so cool if our country had like real trains? Also, you could potentially get, if you set up an event in like Wichita or whatever, I mean, there might be a way to get like host the filmmaker, and you get like 2 free or whatever, that in certain places where people have like, not New York or LA, but where people have like homes with like extras, like guest rooms and stuff, you could probably travel in that way and be hosted without having to live in an RV either. The travel in this country, again, not so great for that, but you could probably do like the East Coast Amtrak version of it at least, or
there is a world of, Courtney, I mean, like the fact that you have this expertise is so interesting. Maybe there is a world of virtual engagement on behalf of the film team, but then having screen, because I don't think I'm going to be on the road for 1.5 years. I mean, like, that's just, I don't see myself being on the road for 1.5 years, but I would be happy to oversee a screening tour for 1.5 years. So it could be virtual engagement and then in-person events produced remotely in some way. Like,
yeah, the remote version, definitely. And it's become, people are used to it now too. So I feel like that's an option. We're going to try the short I did this summer. When it's done, the plan is to do like an online screening and Q&A with like the lead and myself and our intimacy coordinator, and basically sell tickets to that to pay for like the rest of it / festival and whatever other stuff. So we'll see how that goes, but we're gonna test that out probably in January or February too. I mean, that's like a one-off thing, or if it's successful and people are like, oh, we want to do it again, then maybe we'd do a second one. But I feel like there's better versions of online things now because of COVID that you can still make interesting, especially at the like event virtual or interactive versions.
Yes, although I think people are so tired of online events also that like the thing that really gets people excited now is in person.
I think it could be
maybe there's a combo though, because
it could be like a conference room Zoom screen, where the filmmaker is there talking to everyone, but not there, at the beginning of every event. Sorry, I feel like myself getting defensive. Like, I want to stay home, but I want to do this. So I'm trying to figure out that. I don't know.
I'm trying to problem solve with you. I'm just saying, I'm not saying you have to be on the road for 1.5 years. I'm just saying, like, if here's what the audience wants and here's what you want, how do we
I think the event is in person and all of the gooey things that we're talking about is there. I just don't know if the filmmaker has to be there too. That's all I'm suggesting. But especially if it's total immersion into the world of the film, they don't want us, right? I don't know. Maybe maybe you're an actress in it. So maybe they're like, yay, actresses in it, like that brings the world out. But
what about if, so let's say you're doing however long the tour is, and yes, you do want to be at certain events, but not all events. So could there be a threshold where it's like, well, if we sell, this many tickets, then you unlock an appearance from the director or the lead or, what have you.
Yeah.
This is resurrecting an idea related to the hub and spoke model which you told me about ages ago. And the idea was that you would have like spoke screenings in a region. So that they would be like smaller events over a period of time. And then there would be a hub event that would be bigger that you would have incentive to travel to. Maybe the filmmakers there. It's like more immersive, it's cooler, but you've gotten a taste of it at all these smaller ones. So maybe you bring your friends to go to the bigger one.
And if all the events are different, right? If everything is choose your own adventure, or everything is customized or whatever, then you're not experiencing the same thing over and over again, right? So it's incentivized. I think that's exciting.
You could find someone to rewrite Friend Group. I have a film that would be like so perfect for all the event things, but I need someone who likes writing comedy or that certain I can't. Like I tried to fix the script myself and was like, oh my god, I'm not the person to do this. So I'm like, I could do so many things with this movie. It just has to be written first or rewritten first.
Let's quickly in the 2 minutes do accountability for next week. Who wants to go?
We're going to keep working on the rewrite.
Okay.
And I'm going to emotionally try to get myself over the Patreon hurdle so that then I can enter my winter thinking about it with no emotional baggage.
Yay.
I am going to create like the official business plan for the newsletter.
Amazing. Courtney.
I kind of want to figure out this the question I posed at the beginning of, does it make sense to be like, I need to make a second feature and like make it just like do it, or do I try to wait for things and apply for things and do that? Like how so I'm gonna try to make like a pro and con list that maybe you all can weigh in on next week, because I don't know what the right answer is. And it's driving me crazy because I'm like, should I email this group of people about this like script, or should I wait, or should I try to, or should I, like, I feel very stuck at a crossroad that I don't know. So need to
stuck in a moment you can't get out of, you say? Sorry, it was right there.
Yes.
Okay. All right. 5, right? I had mine. Think of something for 100 patrons and work on my hype reel. That's what I'm gonna do.
Can you, in 30 seconds, tell us what a hype reel is?
I think it's just like I don't know if it's a real thing. I just call it a hype reel. It's just a video that makes me look real good and like you want to give me money and that I've done enough that you would trust me to make a movie.
Great.
Cool.
That was a pretty good hype reel right there.
Yeah, that was great. And next week we're doing is a brain trust for Courtney, right?
Yeah. Yay. So maybe I can segue that into like, so what do I do about this second one? Please help. Cool. But I don't want to record it because it's also some like sensitive material and I don't know. Okay.
Sounds good.
Okay.
All right.
Alrighty.